Good afternoon. Dr. Carter G. Woodson said, if you can control a man's thinking, you don't have to concern yourself with his action. When you determine what a man shall think, you don't have to concern yourself about what he will do. See, if you make a man feel inferior, you don't have to compel him to accept an inferior status. He will seek it himself. But if you make a man feel like he's justly an outcast, you don't have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told. And if there's no back door, his very nature will create one. I've been in education for almost 25 years now, and I went in kicking and screaming. Unlike you, it wasn't my dream job. I said, unlike you, it wasn't my dream job. I planned on playing in the National Football League for 10 years. I ended up playing for 10 minutes. The only thing I remember is putting on the uniform and taking the uniform off. I signed with the Raiders, and I get out there in L.A., and I think I'm doing well with the Raiders, but I'm running around with the wrong group, and I'm trying to do what these guys are doing. I end up getting cut by that team. I signed with the Minnesota Vikings. Anybody been to Mankato before? Mankato's out in the middle of nowhere in Minnesota, so I'm focused again on football. I catch the ball. I start running to my left. I turn to go to my right. Bam, I get popped in the knee. Fractured my patella, pulled the tendon. Game over. Ended my career before it got started. Uniform off. So here I am, and I'm limping into a classroom in 1995. And guess what? I was not ready. Unlike you, how many of you were nervous on your first day? So I walked in with all this anxiety and depression, but guess what? Over 50% of our kids is dealing with trauma. But educators, we don't do a good job of taking care of ourselves. I said over 50% of our kids are coming in from traumatic experiences, but I had my own as well. See, I watched my stepfather put his hands on my mom when I was a kid, and I knew at the age of 11, you're not supposed to put your hands on a woman. So I went to try to defend my mom, and my stepfather punched me in the face. So I go to school the next day with my face swollen and my mouth bleeding, and one of my teachers, I thought she was going to come to my rescue and ask me what happened. Instead, she told me to get up and go to the sink and wipe my mouth and go back and sit down. So as a student, I checked out the rest of that semester. So now I'm the educator. I remember how she made me feel. Kids don't always remember what you taught them, but they always remember how you made them feel. So now I'm walking into this situation where here I am, a teacher, I'm looking at the kids, they're looking at me, and we both don't know what to say to each other. And I finally said, I'm your new teacher, I'm going to make some mistakes, but I'm going to do it full speed. They start laughing. I said, but I care about you. When I told them I cared about them, then it got quiet in the room because they weren't used to anybody telling them that they cared about them. But during that same year, when I began my teaching career, I had a student by the name of Melandis Howard. I'll never forget. Melandis Howard was one of my favorite students. He was a great student. He did well in my class. I seen Melandis on a Friday, and I shook his hand, and we dapped each other up, and I said, you're going to have a good weekend. You just did well on your test, and we all excited, and we talking about that. And Melandis Howard walked out the door. The next day, Melandis Howard went to a party with his friends, and he got stabbed to death. So on Monday, when I come back to school, I find out that one of my favorite students got stabbed to death. And here I am, an educator who's supposed to be leading my children, but now who's leading me? I'm dealing with secondary traumatic stress, which almost 60%, 70% of educators deal with secondary traumatic stress. That's compassion fatigue. That's caring about kids a little bit too much. How many ever did that before? Anybody got compassion fatigue? How many of you feel burned out? Okay, well, we need you staying here. The conference is not over till 5, so don't go to the bar until after that. But anyway, some of us have that compassion fatigue. But let me tell you how to deal with compassion fatigue. Let's talk about ways to deal with secondary traumatic stress. First of all, you have to be honest with who you are. And if you're dealing with stress and you're dealing with that secondary traumatic stress, don't act like it's not bothering you. The first thing you do when you're trying to deal with stress is stop trying to remember everything. How many of you write things down on a little sticky note? Anybody use sticky notes? Pop yourself on the hand. Stop doing that. Sticky notes get lost. How many of you ever lost your sticky note? You know why you lost sticky notes? Because they don't stick to everything. They fall off. right? So instead of getting a sticky note, what you need to do is you need to get a little pad of paper or you need to get some kind of tablet and keep notes in it. Number 2 is stop trying to please everybody. Some of us trying to please everybody, you're never going to please everybody. The first thing you do when you get on the airplane, they tell you, well, if the cabin pressure drop, put the mask on yourself first. You know why they tell you to put the mask on yourself? Because if you're trying to put the mask on somebody else, you're going to pass out trying to put the mask on them. That means you have to take care of yourself. Number 3 is you have to take care of your mind and your body. As educators, we got to do a good job of taking care of ourselves. So how do you take care of your mind and your body? Well, number 1, exercise. Number 2, eat right. Number 3, meditate. Number 4, who do you need to cut off? And number 5 is you got to get some rest. Now, I didn't get a lot of rest last night because I flew in and got in here early in the morning, but I plan to get some rest tonight. Number 4, stop starting your day with false energy. What is false energy? How many of you drink coffee? Coffee is false energy. Instead of starting your day with coffee, some of you looking at me strange because that's a bad word in here when you talk about somebody's coffee. Instead of starting your day with coffee, why don't you start your day with affirmations? Say, I matter. Say, I matter. Say, I am somebody. Say, I will be successful. Say, I am smart. Say, I believe in me. And last but not least, you have to talk to your problems instead of talking about your problems. Secondary traumatic stress is something that educators suffer from all the time, the secondary traumatic stress. And secondary traumatic stress will kill you. Stress causes diseases. But if we're going to take care of our children, we're going to do a better job of being educators, we got to do a better job of taking care of ourselves. Anybody agree with that? How do we take care of ourselves? Well, I just gave you the steps. What's number 1? I believe in affirmation. What's number 1? Yeah, get rid of those sticky notes, right? What are we going to get us a tablet? But you have to exercise. Number 2, eat right. Number 3, meditate. Number 4, some of you need to start cutting off that phone and stop answering the phone. Number 5, get some rest. Thank you for having me. Any questions? And don't ask me any questions about coffee either, because it's false energy. Any questions? Okay. That is a great question. You said, what do you do when kids are coming in with all this stress and you're dealing with the secondary traumatic stress? What you do is you leave work at work and you leave home at home. What I found out when Melandis Howard passed away, and I had all these kids looking at me, and they're looking at me for advice, they're looking at me for guidance, and I had to put the mask on myself, because what I was doing, I was trying to put the mask on my kids, and I was suffocating. I said when that pressure drops, you have to put the mask on yourself. So you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Also understand that we can't take care of everybody's problems. We're not perfect. We can't fix everything. But if you keep dwelling on one child, there's another 40 that we need to be thinking about. So in order for us to take care of ourselves, we have to be able to cut it off. And that's hard to do as an educator, to cut off when you got something going on with a kid at school and not taking it home and not bringing your home back to school, because when we bring home to school, guess who's affected by it? Students. So we need to learn how to leave home at home and school at school, but also we have to meditate before we get in there. We have to speak positive words into ourselves, and we do our best every day. And if your best wasn't good enough that day, you did your best. But you have to learn how to let it go. And it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Good question. Anybody else? Okay. Thanks for having me. Thank you very much.